One of the things that I've long been interested in is how do conservatives consume the news? How do they consume the things that are happening in the world? And I think a really good microcosm of that is the conservative subreddit. So I'm over here today on r/conservative looking at the top post from just this past week, and I thought it'd be a good idea to just sort of scroll through and see what it is that conservatives are talking about. What it is that they find to be relevant and important to the general sort of world around us. So this is a subreddit I've long been a fan of. It's a great subreddit, honestly. It's really quite fun to read through sometimes, and also very depressing. But I think that one of the first things that you'll realize is every single post has this tag here: flared users only. Flared users only. This is on almost every post, if not every post. It's all flared users only. And for those of you not familiar with Reddit or what flared means, it's essentially a specific tag that you have to have that I think the moderators give to you, and it sort of verifies your membership in the community. And so it means that if you don't have a flare, and what does a flare look like? So we'll just kind of go to the comment section on this Bukele video. So you see a flare here. Canadian conservative, that's a flare. Refuse to comply, that's a flare, right? Paleo conservative, that's a flare. So if you don't have something like that, then you cannot post on the subreddit. And so for all of the complaining that this subreddit does, because they do a lot of complaining about how uh, Reddit is this like liberal hellscape and there's no space for them on Reddit and this and that and whatever. And they constantly complain about this. They really love complaining about it. It's one of their favorite things to do. Um, but by making every single post flared users only, they have quite literally done exactly what they are upset at Reddit for doing. Right? They claim that Reddit is this big echo chamber of liberals or whatever, but by making it flared users only, they have literally just made an echo chamber for themselves. And they'll claim that it's to stop brigaders and it's to stop, leftist people coming in and like making fun of them or whatever, and downvoting all of their comments and posts. And they constantly do this, right? Leftists and liberals will come in and like downvote posts and things. Um, but really, what it means is that nobody can actually push back against their nonsense. Nobody can actually say anything or rebut any of their claims or anything like that. So it's kind of interesting to sort of look at how they view themselves, the way that they think the liberal sort of ecosystem works, the way that they think leftists work. It's all very interesting. So I thought it'd be a good idea today to just kind of go through um, a couple of these top posts from just this past week. What do they find interesting? What are they talking about? Let's start here with one of the top stories I think of the past few days, few weeks, is the case of Kilmar Garcia. Right, this is a man. For those, I mean, if you're not familiar at this point, uh, pick up a newspaper. You know what I mean? But a man who was illegally deported to the El Salvadorian Gulag, CCOT. Um, and the government has admitted themselves. This is the official court filing of the ICE attorneys, has admitted themselves through administrative error. Abrego Garcia was removed from the United States and sent back to El Salvador. This was an oversight. It is something that they admit themselves in court. And so I just thought that we can go through some of the comments here. So top one here. Is it not a little concerning that the government can make an administrative error, send someone into custody in a foreign, to a prison in a foreign country, in contravention of, I don't, is this contradiction? I'm not really sure what contravention means. Whatever, of a lawful court order, and then it's just, oh well, not our problem. They floated sending U.S. citizens to prisons in El Salvador as well. Would they then also fall outside the scope of any American jurisdiction? So this is a consistent theme that you see if you browse through this conservative subreddit, is that you will actually get some people who are pretty reasonable. Like, this seems like a pretty reasonable person, a pretty reasonable take, something to be actually concerned about, right? If we're going to start sending U.S. citizens to foreign jails and then have no jurisdiction over those foreign jails, like that would be a bad thing to happen, one would think, right? And it's I think that they make a good point. Is it not concerning that they can just deport people on quote unquote administrative errors and then just say, "Oops, my bad"? First comment and reply: it wasn't an error. Let me go back again to the official court documents of the ICE attorneys saying, through administrative error, Abrego Garcia was removed from the United States and sent back to El Salvador. The official court documents. So, I mean, I don't know what fantasy world these people live in. I really do not. And I'm nervous here to click on 75 more replies. But let's just see what comes up here. 40 Michael, here we go. The media is pushing that hard. Twice ruled by an immigration courts of being active in an MS-13 group illegally in the US for years, received and ignored deportation orders, deported. The truth doesn't matter to these people. All right. Well, Michael, let's take a look at Lawfare over here. Roger Parloff is a really good article that everyone should go read, go check out. It's all about these the claims that he was in fact a terrorist, that he was in fact an MS-13 gang member. Just as a aside, MS-13 originated in U.S. prisons, and then we deported them back to El Salvador, and that's why the gang is as powerful as it is. Abrigo Garcia, who has no criminal record in the United States or anywhere else, denies the allegation of gang membership. Judge David M. Jones in October of 2019. Jones's 2019 ruling barring Abrego Garcia's removal to El Salvador due to credible fear of persecution was reached after 2 days of hearings, during which Jones took testimony from Abrego Garcia and Jennifer. Jennifer, I think, is his wife. In that hearing, the respondent provided clear, credible responses to the questions asked. His testimony was internally consistent, externally consistent with his asylum application, other documents, and appeared free of embellishment. Further, he provided substantial evidence or substantial documentation buttressing his claims. Included in this evidence were several affidavits from family members. The court finds the respondent credible. This is all in relation to the fact that Barrio 18 was harassing his family in El Salvador and extorting his family's business. On one occasion, gang members entered the family's home and threatened to kill Cesar, which is Abrego Garcia's brother, Kilmar's brother, until Kilmar's father paid the tribute money. Soon thereafter, the family sent Cesar to the United States. Abrego Garcia was asked if he was a gang member. When he told police he was not, they said they did not believe him and repeatedly demanded that he provide information about other gang members. The police told plaintiff Abrego Garcia that he would be released if he cooperated, but he repeatedly explained that he did not have any information to give because he did not know anything. This is what I'm talking about, is that there's really just no interest or curiosity on the part of these conservatives to figure out, is it actually true? Right? They keep saying that he's an MS-13 gang member. He says he's not. His wife says he's not. The court said he can't go back to El Salvador because he's been extorted by other gangs. They say that he's an MS-13 gang member, almost all entirely based on the claim of a confidential informant. There's no other evidence that he is, in fact, a gang member other than a confidential informant saying that he is a gang member, right? So, again, I kind of agree with this top post here that isn't this a little bit concerning? But then you scroll down a little bit and you just start to see the misinformation that runs rampant in this subreddit. And again, this goes back to it being a flared subreddit or flared users only subreddit, whereby they've just created this echo chamber for themselves. And people like this are upvoted, hundreds of times. I think that French Affair makes another good point here. The lack of due process and something that now seems very absolute and completely outside of the authority of the government agency that put him in those conditions and with seemingly no accountability seems concerning. And I would agree. It is concerning. There was no due process. You know what a process would have been to figure out if he was in fact a gang member? If he had a trial, but he didn't. This idea that we should just be allowed to deport people with no due process is really just insane. A lot of left wing misinformation, even in this comment section. It's sad how many people who appear to be in the right just eat up all the left's garbage. I'm not really sure what misinformation I've provided here. I don't think I've provided any misinformation. Again, I'll go back to the U.S. government documents that they admit that it was in fact an error. The entire claim that he's an MS-13 member comes from a single confidential informant. There was no trial prior to him being deported this time. There was actually an order saying that he should be not removed to El Salvador because of credible threats against his life. And yeah, it's all okay. It's all okay. And we're fine with just deporting people with no due process, according to r/conservative. Here we go. Conservative boycott, liberal boycott. Oh no, the Tesla dealership. Oh, all the cars were set on fire. I mean, I do remember that when the boycott against like Bud Light or whatever was happening, that they were literally shooting Bud Lights. They were shooting Bud Lights, and like thought that was pretty funny. But let's talk about the difference here. I think that in these boycotts, the conservative boycott, they were mad at Bud Light because Bud Light sent a single can of beer to a trans activist with that person's face on it. That's why they were mad. They were mad about that. People are mad about Tesla because of who owns Tesla, because the owner of Tesla did two straight Nazi salutes at an inauguration ceremony. He has cut thousands of federal jobs, is running rampant in the federal government, is stealing people's data through Doge, and is the world's richest Nazi. I mean, that's literally what he is. So I think that the difference here in the boycotts is mad that a trans person received a single can of beer with their face on it, mad at the rise of far right nonsense and fascism in this country. And it's all happening because a foreign billionaire has decided that he is going to be king of the world and he just wants to take over everything. So, yeah, this is a fun one. Donald Trump has arrived for UFC 314 in Miami. Wow, look at him. Look at him. That's my goat. Wow, look at him. Uh, there's 735 comments. What the fuck are people even saying about this? Oh yeah, it is. So he shakes RFK's hand. She goes in with a handshake. He just ignores her. And then he oh my god. That is so funny though. Quite honestly, that is hilarious. Oh man. I don't know why they're talking about that, but that is pretty funny that she got ignored. But this is really important for them, really important for them to be talking about. Thank you, mods. A special thank you for the mods who are no doubt working day in and day out to prevent our sub from becoming a leftist shithole. As for the leftist brigaders, have fun for the next 3 years. We aren't going anywhere. Hell yeah, consistent Bat 20. Conservative libertarian over here. Funny enough, conservative libertarian, anti-libertarian conservative. Top comment there. It's kind of funny. This is a pretty consistent thing that they'll post pretty often. You'll probably see it once a week or so. A big post about how Reddit's too liberal. We're not going anywhere. Liberal brigaders are bad. Liberal brigaders are ruining our sub. This and that. Even though their sub is literally just a straight out and out echo chamber. I mean, it really is just that. Critical thought on the Trump administration. For fear of losing my cult member standing, I do have to offer a critique of the current administration. So I'm not a fan of the CR, that's the funding spending bill, or budget, sorry, that the Republicans are trying to pass, and not cutting spending in any meaningful way. And I don't trust Johnson to do any hard work. That is not my criticism. I don't know why he said it then, but that's not his criticism. I don't know why he's talking about it then. Anyways, the Signal leak story, more of a non-story. Yeah, leaking your war crimes to a journalist, not a story. Not even a story. Not even a story. The mailing guy who got deported, I honestly don't know who is telling the truth. That's not my issue. Again, it doesn't really matter if you want to, listen to conservatives or liberals or whatever on that issue. The government has admitted that it was an administrative error that he was removed. So, whatever. Okay, fine. It's not your issue. I guess you just are fine with people being deported with no due process. And that's totally normal. It's totally normal. But here's what gets him the most. What gets me the most is the lack of accountability for those in government who broke actual real laws, not some stretch to sort of make an act against the law. I don't know what. I mean, the phrasing here is very strange. But, anyways, I was all for Patel that had the FBI and Bondi. I didn't know, so I took a wait and see attitude. Well, I'm starting to get impatient. What is Congress doing? Where are the criminal referrals to the DOJ and recommendations of prosecution? There were stories of people deleting files. Why haven't they been charged? This, I think, is like the main problem with a lot of conservative thought is that you get so caught up in your own lies and your own like nonsense worldview that what ends up happening is that you start to think that your fantasy reality is actual reality. And so this idea that like we're rounding up all of these fraudsters in the federal government and all of these arrests are going to start coming down and all of these people are going to be charged and indicted and sent to prison, it's just not going to happen because the level of fraud that they're talking about happening in the government just simply is not happening. And to the extent that it is happening, it's happening in places that they're not even looking. We have a military which is about to receive $1 trillion budget, and it's literally the Pentagon has never passed an audit. They don't pass audits because they don't actually spend the money appropriately. And so, this idea that we're like saving money and cutting waste and cutting fraud, it's all just nonsense. Really, what they're doing is trying to privatize everything, undermine confidence in what the government can and should do for people. And so, that way, they can just say, well, the government can't do it. So, I guess companies have to do it instead. But this person is confused. Why haven't they been charged? Crossfire Hurricane officials, how they have not been charged. There are many examples. Maybe cases are being built, but I don't have a positive feeling that anything will happen. With all the concerns that Trump has an enemies list, etc., is the administration backing off to avoid a fake scandal and barrage of negative press? Do your jobs, people. So, bitter assignment 464 here is really, really upset about all of this. And I mean, honestly, you can't really blame them. Where are the indictments? Where are the arrests? Who knows? Who knows? But he does go on to add, though, he's no liberal. I want scum liberals to in prison sooner than later. So that really shows the sort of revenge politics that a lot of the conservative Republican Party ecosystem is engaging in these days. I think the point that I'm generally just trying to make is that a lot of things that they talk about are just not really all that important. A lot of the things that they say are just like blatant lies. They talk about this case, and it's always like they really like to make like any of these cases, and they did the same thing with like George Floyd, for instance. Um, where they really like to make it about that individual, whereby if that individual is not a perfect person, if that individual is not a perfect victim, then therefore it's okay that they were in fact victimized, right? That Kilmar Abrego Garcia might be, a flawed individual in some way, and so therefore it's okay to deport him to a gulag in El Salvador with no due process, no trial, no nothing. But that's just not okay, right? And the question that I sort of have to ask at this point is just, do conservatives have any concern that when other people's rights are being taken away, do you not have concern that that might one day happen to you? They've already floated talking about removing US citizens who've committed crimes and deporting them to El Salvador. I mean, that is insane that we're going to deport US citizens simply for committing crimes and outsource, prison labor to other countries, basically. And it's just kind of it's kind of like one of these things where you kind of have to step back and think, what is your worldview? What good comes out of this happening? Right? What good comes out of deporting people with no due process? If you want people, right? This is a constant refrain on the immigration issue. If you want people to come here the right way, then you should have to remove people the right way too, if you want to have deportation as a thing, right? I mean, I'm of the opinion that borders are imaginary lines drawn in the sand, and I know that is true because borders have changed over time. There used to be only 13 states in the country, and now there's 50 states. So I know that borders have changed over time. And so therefore, I know borders are entirely arbitrary and entirely made up by people. But if you want to live in the world where borders are rigid, hard and fast things that cannot be changed, cannot be altered, even though history disproves that, if you want to live in that world, fine, fine, whatever. But why do you want to live in a world where people can be deported arbitrarily with no evidence, with no due process, with no trial, and they can just be sent to a gulag in a foreign country that is sentencing them to prison for life? And we now know as well that at least it's like 75% to 90% of the people from Venezuela that they shipped down to CICA in El Salvador have no evidence of criminal records. And so the idea here is just, again, what good comes out of this, right? If you deport everyone with no due process, you get rid of all of the brown people, what does that actually do? And my point is, it doesn't really do anything. All it really does is just make people more hateful, make people more angry and more upset at the things happening in the world. And that just makes me sad, quite honestly. So yeah, in the end, r/conservative, very strange place, very kind of interesting place to sort of peruse from time to time. You see a lot of nonsense. You see a lot of people living in like weird alternate realities that don't really exist. A lot of their statements and sort of quote unquote facts have no real basis in reality. And for all their complaining about Reddit being a liberal, echo chamber, and thank you mods for not making the sub a leftist shithole, right? They sure do live in an echo chamber, and they really do struggle to ever question any of their beliefs. So we'll probably check back in with r/conservative at some later point, but yeah, definitely not a cult. Definitely not a cult, guys. Remember that.